want to just say it's really beautiful to see so many people of different ages and different ethnicities here. And I'm really glad I gather you're taking ethnic studies, and I just want to share a little bit. When I first came to the campus in 1966, the only students of color, I mean, my parents had, my mother and my great auntie worked two jobs, and well, my auntie was a nurse, so she just worked one job, and my mother worked two jobs, and they sent me to, St. Anne's School and St. Rose Academy. So I had a very good education. And when I was being tormented by the white kids, I was chubby and I had long braids. And I was traditional. And my mother and my great auntie looked like they were straight off the boat because they always wore scarves tied under their neck, like they do in Nicaragua at a time when the white people were wearing, their hair was in bubbles. And it was coming out, in the 50s, it was coming out of it was at the time when people were very conformist. So the white kids picked on me, and I don't want to talk about me at this point. I want to talk about what happened when I went to college. I'm just explaining that I was one of the few Raza people who didn't, who was on campus, who was not a wealthy Latina foreign student, because when I came to the campus in 1966, the only people, the majority, the great majority of the people of color on the campus were wealthy foreign students from Africa and from Latin America. They were not homegrown San Franciscans, because we still had the tracking system going on in the public schools, during which if you have your teacher in grammar school would determine whether you should take college prep classes in high school, or if you were destined to be a mechanic. And so all the kids of color got pushed into classes that would not give them the credits from high school to get into a college. And so, I mean, I know for people who were told, you're suited to be a car mechanic, and so that's also like 60% or more of the students in the public schools in San Francisco were non-white, but only 6% of the students at San Francisco State were non-white. And like I said, they were mostly wealthy foreign students. And so my memory of the experimental college is a little different from the preceding people, because I came in around that time afterwards. I came in around 67 or somewhere in there. I'm a little fuzzy on years, but the point being that the experimental college, what I remember is that the idea was that people had everybody's experience. There were people who had a body of knowledge that was not necessarily recognized by the academy. We'll say like someone who was a karate master or a real community organizer. People have bodies of knowledge that didn't come from the academy. And let's remember that the academy, what I mean by that, I mean the higher education system, was established in these continents by the invading missionaries, the invading the Jesuits and these occupying forces. And so anything that's the university is it's a descendant of colonialism, and the way that they burned all the books of the Mayans to burn the evidence of this high civilization that they came and destroyed the evidence of. And they went, they brought the Inquisition to this land, to this continent. They brought the Inquisition. They brought torture, rape, pillage, theft. And you know what? It's going on even today in Nicaragua this week. In the last 3 months, there's been all these indigenous villages burned to the ground by the white colonizers that are trying to seize the land of the Mayagna people. And I've tried to get help. And if anybody can figure out or wants to form a committee to help the Mayagna people of Nicaragua, I'm just one disabled elder, and I don't know where to go. If anyone has any ideas, I'd love to get help with that. But anyways, so the experimental college introduced the idea that you didn't have to have a PhD to have enough knowledge of anything to share. And so anybody with a body of knowledge that they felt was valuable could teach, and anybody who wanted to learn could sign up for it, and it was free. That was the idea. But what my experience at the experimental college, I didn't know, the part what Dr. Garrett was talking about before when I came into it. okay, was that I was there. I was a student, so it must have been in '66. There was a slate, a progressive slate, and then Russell Bass was running for president. And like Jimmy said, there were before that the Associated Students money, which mind you was $10 for every student. So that's a lot of money. And that was the Associated Student budget. And so it had been just used for like the pom-pom girls and the sororities and the fraternities. And then Russell Bass ran on a platform to establish 5 areas of service. We would use the associated funds to establish 5 areas of service. And the service, what was founded was draft help, the Black Film Institute, the community organization, community services organization, and the tutorial program and the experimental college. And for example, Eddie Washington was the founder pretty much of the Black Film Institute and the tutorial program. And his concept was that it would be better for Black students to tutor the little kids in the Black community, and for the Latino students like myself to tutor the Latino students, so that there wouldn't be this kind of missionary attitude where it would be white students tutoring everybody. It would be everyone to tutor in their own community so that the students would be comfortable with the person that was tutoring them. That was the revolutionary idea that Eddie Washington came up with regarding tutoring. Roger Alvarado worked for the Community Organizing Institute, of which Sharon Gold was the executive director. And I worked as the secretary of the experimental college next door to the Community Organizing Institute, and then there was draft help. So anyways, so what was going on was there were no teachers of color on campus whatsoever, except for one. He wasn't even a teacher of color, but the guy who taught the history of Latin America was a retired executive from Standard Oil. And he's also the guy who taught the Spanish class. That was the state of affairs when I walked on campus in 1966. It was, like was said, there was no faculty of color, and there were very few students of color, except for these wealthy foreign students. And so, but this whole country was in turmoil. There was a high energy because people's sons were being drafted, people being forced to go to war without their consent to kill people who like Muhammad Ali said, had done them no harm, and they're being forced to go kill. And so the whole country was on high alert because only people who had the money to go to school could get a draft deferment because they were students. And so it was just, so that's what this, so the consciousness was high because it was, everybody was being affected by it, by the draft. And my message is, if you notice, we had the attitude of the education, the college education is for us to develop our minds to be of service to our community for life, to serve our community and to serve the world for life. And I am distressed because now, when we founded the College of Ethnic Studies, jumping way ahead, there was a strike, and the strike came about because of what we're talking about. That there was nothing that we could relate to. In like, for example, I took psychology. In the psychology class, the teacher said, there's positions of power. The bus driver is the one with the power, and then the people who don't have the power are the ones, sitting in the bus. And and then you have the big country, the important countries. They're the ones that have the power, and they kind of help the little countries. And then I raised my hand and said, well, no, isn't it that the little countries are the ones that support the big countries because all the resources and labor comes from the little countries? So he got enraged because I didn't agree with him. And I found that in taking classes from white instructors that they would grade me according to whether I agreed with what they said, not by the excellence of my examination of the subject matter. And so there was definitely a need for classes that told the story of the people of color from our viewpoint and taught by our own people. And because you're a person of color and you walk in those days, I don't know what it is like now, but you walk into a classroom and the teacher's white, they immediately have their racist, baggage that comes into play when they see you. Whereas if you go into a College of Ethnic Studies class, that's your brethren there, right there. You know, the teacher loves you and you love the teacher and you're comfortable and you can learn and you can learn the truth. And what's happened with ethnic studies is that they've done a study that showed that anybody who takes an ethnic studies class, white or anybody of any color, as long as they take at least one ethnic studies class, they have a greater chance of graduating because for the first time in their life, they're hearing the truth, right? I mean, I'm sure you're experiencing that you're hearing other viewpoints that you've never heard while you're being inculcated with the Western European Anglo-Judaic context. And good luck to each and every one of you, and may each and every one of you remember, you know, to keep it up, to keep the fight going for justice for your entire life. It feels good to be at the end of your life and know that you did your best to make things better. Thank you.